shines a light on a growing number of violent incidents at TDSB schools.
I think that they have to figure out why it's happening. I think that they need to talk to parents.
The board is reporting more than 300 incidents of violence this school year. What it plans to do to address the rise. Plus,
the door was shattered and the glass everywhere, inside and outside.
Another East End business targeted by a break-in, why community members are sounding the alarm. And
that dog jumped up and bit one of the students in the face.
An attack on a 14-year-old by an off-leash dog prompts debate about the use of schoolyards after hours. Good evening, I'm Farah Morali. This school year could break a record for violent incidents in Toronto. The TDSB has released figures in a new report. Meg Roberts was at tonight's board meeting and has the latest.
Tonight at the TDSB committee meeting, the board sharing a report with trustees about violence on school property. The board says more than 300 students were involved in violence this past academic year.
Yes, it is concerning that we see that number going up, but largely our schools are safe places to learn and work.
The board has said that number is the highest since 2018-2019, and the school year isn't even over, which may make this a record year for violence. This parent has 2 children that go to Birchmount Collegiate. The school had multiple stabbings this school year.
I think that they have to figure out why it's happening. I think that they need to talk to parents. Parents are never consulted. That is actually what I delegated about at the last meeting. That they never speak to us.
Politicians and psychologists believe that the increase in violence is due to mental health challenges and also lack of routine following the pandemic. The TDSB said earlier this year that it's a challenging problem to fix, but in that report it allocated $2.7 million in investments to staffing and training. According to the report, the board has hired 2 teachers, 1 child and safe schools advisor, 2 child and youth counselors, 22 additional school-based safety monitors, 11 child youth counselors have been hired, and 12 social workers.
There are a number of different measures that we're taking right across the board to increase school safety, but again, we're just one partner in the larger picture in this.
The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario says that 3/4 of its members have experienced or witnessed violence against staff. The union also conducting a survey with the results stating more than 42% of its members have either experienced psychological or physical injury with workplace violence this academic year. Meg Roberts, CBC News, Toronto.
Turning to developing news, CBC News has learned that Premier Doug Ford intends to break apart Peel Region within 3 years, and legislation is set to be introduced at Queen's Park tomorrow. Peel Region is made up of Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. The cities share services like police, paramedics, health programs, and recycling. Ford said last week that he believed Mississauga and Brampton are large cities that can stand alone, and that any changes would ensure equal or better services for those municipalities. Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie has been pushing for her city to become independent. She said the move will save her city $1 billion over 10 years and make it more efficient. Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown has said he would welcome efforts to remove duplication, but believes Mississauga would owe Brampton under any separation because of the infrastructure his residents have funded for the city of Mississauga. The family of a missing 37-year-old man are desperately searching for any sign of him. Nathan went missing last Friday from his home near Jane and Shepherd. He has Down syndrome, and his family is worried he can't care for himself alone for this long. Ali Chiasson has the latest.
Nathan's friends and family are still looking for him, and they are still so deeply concerned. So it appears that he wandered off from home around here near Jane and Shepherd on Friday, and he hasn't been seen since. He's 37 years old, he has Down syndrome, and it's said that he functions at about a 7-year-old's level. It's been long enough now that they're worried that he won't be able to fend for himself being gone for so long. So the search here has ramped up. Toronto Police Mounted Unit is out searching parks and ravines for any sight of him. They're being accompanied by the K-9 unit as well. Now, Nathan is from the Kitchener-Waterloo area, and I spoke to some members of his family today, and they say he may have tried to make his way back to KW either by hitching a ride or taking the bus and got lost along the way at some point. I spoke with Mike Simpson. He's a family friend and Nathan's bowling coach. Have a listen.
He's a fairly independent guy. He has Down syndrome, but he's very capable, and he's a very friendly guy. He's not a threat to anybody. There's no foul. We just want to hear from you, buddy, and know you're safe. And you contact any one of us.
So while the police search happens here in Toronto, simultaneously friends and family in Kitchener-Waterloo are out looking for Nathan. They're checking out different locations that he was known to frequent: malls, cafes, restaurants. And at the same time, the public is being urged to call police for any sightings of Nathan. Even if it's a maybe, it could potentially lead to his whereabouts. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police have confirmed a 14-year-old boy was injured after he was attacked by a dog at Rollinson Community School last Friday. It happened after school hours and the dog was off leash. Residents in the area say this is a growing problem at the school. Greg Ross has the details.
Well, we know that it happened after school hours at about 6 o'clock last Friday evening. We're told that there were some kids who were playing here in the park behind me. In fact, they were students at the school. And one of those students, a 14-year-old boy, engaged with a dog that was off leash. And there was no owner around for that dog either. TDSB trustee Alexis Dawson spoke with the family of that boy and explains what happened next.
That dog jumped up and bit one of the students in the face, causing extensive damage. That student had to be rushed to Sick Kids for emergency reconstructive surgery and will need future surgeries as well. So it's quite serious. Dogs off leash on school property is a citywide issue at the TDSB. It's not just confined to Rollinson Community School.
And that's a problem that's been expressed by many parents here at the school and community members in the neighborhood. They tell us that a lot of dog owners allow their dogs to run free here in the schoolyard. We spoke with one dog owner who says she does let her dog off leash in the schoolyard here sometimes because she says there aren't many other options in the area.
This is the closest green space we have in this area for our dogs, so we do let her come here and run around and burn off some energy because, you know, it's the city. It's people live in apartments and condos, and you want your dog to have free space to run. I think dog owners should be responsible for their dogs and know that if they have some aggressions, they should keep them on a leash and keep them in check.
Our elected officials must think critically around providing infrastructure for dogs and dog owners. Dogs have a right to access our city amenities as well.
The school board still isn't sure where that dog is now, and they have not identified the owner of that dog. They're hoping that the owner does come forward, especially with all of the attention that this story is now getting. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Here is a live look at the Toronto skyline. Temperatures sitting at a chilly 7 degrees. Colette's with us now for a first look at the forecast. And Colette, this cold weather spells pretty bad news for those who started planting in the garden.
Yeah, for those folks who jumped the gun a little bit, here we are with a frost advisory, more widespread tonight than it was last night. As I was mentioning then, that tonight we'd be having the lighter winds, and so we would probably see this with the clear skies. And sure enough, look at that blanket frost advisory. Doesn't mean everywhere it's going to be in place, but patchy in nature through southwestern Ontario and towards the Golden Horseshoe, and even a hard freeze possible further north from there still. So yeah, we're end of May. It's only the 17th. We're getting there, baby steps all the way. Just having a quick peek at the daytime highs today. You can see these are well below seasonal. We're now at the point where in Toronto, the daytime high, the normal is 20. So really almost 10 degrees cooler than that. The overnight temperatures, this model even wants to dip Sarnia below freezing. I'm not going there with my forecast. You'll see that coming up, but I'm going pretty close. All right, tonight for Toronto, it's 2 degrees with those clear skies and 15, slightly warmer tomorrow, Farah, than what it was today.
All right, thanks, Colette. A local business owner on Queen East is speaking out after a rash of break-ins in the area. The woman woke up to find her windows smashed and her restaurant vandalized. This comes a week after CBC Toronto told you about business owners being robbed at gunpoint in Scarborough. Talia Ricci reports.
Maha Barsoon opened this new cafe just over a week ago, so when she found out it had already been broken into, she was devastated.
The door was shattered and the glass everywhere, inside and outside. And inside the cafe, the garbage bin was dropped, a couple of plates broken, and the till was not there.
Barsoon said her son called the police, but she said they were told they had to wait because it wasn't a priority. Barsoon also owns Maha's Brunch on Greenwood, which she says has also been broken into twice.
It was too late because we had to clean up and we had to go on with the business. I was kind of frustrated a little bit because of the response that this was not an emergency, but it was an emergency in my eyes. And it's not the first time that we have this break-in. We had a couple of break-ins.
We spoke with about a dozen other business owners within a few blocks of the restaurant. One said they were broken into last night, and others said that they had been broken into several times over the last year. They're hoping more action is taken to prevent this.
It's heartbreaking to have your business smashed in, especially when you've just moved to Queen Street. This is unfortunate. It does seem to happen in cycles. And when this happens, I always get in touch with the local police division, 55, and ask them to increase their surveillance, their patrols, and even their plainclothes observations in this area. So I think it's time for that again.
Toronto police say they are investigating 3 reports of break-and-enters in the area overnight. They're alerting businesses to keep their tills empty and to have security cameras visible. Barsoon says she doesn't want to see any other small businesses suffer.
They should do something more serious about this. It costs us a lot of money to repair what they damage.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
The possibility of chaos and canceled flights is looming larger. Pilots at WestJet have served notice that they're ready to strike starting Friday. And the company says the two sides are no closer to a deal. The main sticking points are pay and job security. Both sides have been negotiating for 9 months. Labor experts say the standoff reflects the deteriorating conditions in the profession. Any job action could affect WestJet and Swoop flights, disrupting long weekend travel plans for thousands of Canadians. Welcome back. When the City of Toronto launched the Housing Now program in 2019, it promised a fast-track way to get more affordable homes for those who need them. But now, more than 4 years later, the program has yet to see a single home built. Angelina King now on why that is.
The city has big plans for this parking lot. Affordable housing units, retail, community facilities, and parkland. But after 4 years of planning, the lot remains as is. Along with 20 other sites the city has set aside for affordable housing under its program Housing Now.
We're calling it Housing Later, maybe Housing Maybe.
Here's how many of the Housing Now projects work. The city provides city land to a developer. The developer is then supposed to build the project. But the city keeps at least 1/3 of the units for use as affordable housing. The developer gets the other 2/3 of the units and can sell or rent them to recoup costs. So far, 21 Housing Now sites have been selected. 11 of them were chosen early on with a plan to complete them by now. So far, not even a shovel has been put in the ground.
It's not a surprise in a sad kind of way.
The Residential Construction Council of Ontario says the program isn't attractive to some developers for a variety of reasons, including the possibility of losing money due to the city's onerous approval process for this type of project, which includes about 20 sustainability requirements, such as mandatory green roof systems and wiring for electric vehicle charging stations at each parking spot.
There's this belief that, well, the industry can absorb just about anything, and the industry is going to pay for it, not the consumer. But it is the consumer that pays for it at the end of the day.
The CEO of the city agency overseeing Housing Now says it hasn't had any issues getting developers on board, saying the problem is the pandemic.
Construction costs have escalated 60%. We all know interest rates were 2% just a year ago, now they're 7%. So that really is what has impacted the viability of these sites.
Vic Gupta does concede the returns for developers are very thin.
They're 3 3/4, they're 4%, 4.25% yields. That's not a huge return for them to take on all the risk.
So since 2016...
Mark Richardson is part of a group tracking and criticizing Housing Now, saying part of the answer is size.
From January of 2019, we raised concerns that the city's height and density on most of their Round 1 sites was too small to make the buildings viable.
The city says it's expecting construction to begin on 3 sites by the end of the year, with people moving in 3 or 4 years from now. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
A convicted killer is back in custody after a brief escape from a Kingston prison. The OPP say 42-year-old Joshua Cole was arrested by Kingston police after finding his way out of a minimum security unit at Collins Bay Institution. He is serving a life sentence for second-degree murder. The investigation into how he got out is ongoing. The remains found inside a car pulled from Lake Ontario have now been identified as those of a prison guard who disappeared 40 years ago. David Hanna vanished in 1983 at the age of 36. He worked as a guard at Millhaven Penitentiary and has last been seen in Kingston. Ontario Provincial Police divers pulled the car containing his remains from Lake Ontario earlier this month. They had spotted it back in January of this year when they were removing another vehicle from the lake. OPP have notified Hanna's family about the discovery. Premier Doug Ford says he's disappointed in the federal government's handling of the Stellantis EV battery plant deal in Windsor. The auto giant has stopped construction on part of the mega plant, saying the federal government has not kept up its end of the bargain. Lorenda Redekop has the latest.
Stellantis has halted the building on one part of its $5 billion EV battery plant. Future jobs now a question mark. Today, a federal minister once again said the government wants Ontario to pay its fair share. This afternoon, following question period, the Premier spoke to reporters.
We did put our fair share in, exactly what we did with Volkswagen. It's disappointing it's come to this right now, but we believe in working with the federal government. We can't afford to lose Stellantis, but my question to the feds, what is our fair share?
The province put up $500 million, the same amount it put up for the much larger deal for a battery plant in St. Thomas. That deal was made after the U.S. came out with incentives for green energy producers to build there. The Canadian government agreeing to up to $13 billion in subsidies for the St. Thomas plant.
It's entirely unclear who dropped the ball with Stellantis. The workers of this province deserve to see that deal honored.
The fireworks started at Queen's Park as soon as the NDP brought up the deal.
Will the Premier meet with the Prime Minister immediately, find out what's gone sideways, use every tool in the toolbox, and get the Stellantis deal over the finish line?
Economic Development Minister Vic Fedeli.
We know the feds have made a commitment to Stellantis. In fact, in writing, 5 times they have committed to matching the production incentives of the United States. 5 times the feds have committed. We are urging the federal government to honor their commitment.
The question is if the deal can be salvaged and whether Stellantis will stay in Canada.
I'm optimistic if we can come to a resolution on a deal. I'm just disappointed right now the fact that we weren't involved. They never talked to us.
However, the Premier says the federal government is talking with the province now. The cozy relationship between the two governments also in question, along with this auto deal. Lorenda Redekop, CBC.
Colette's back now with a look at your extended forecast. Colette, any chance things will improve, maybe get a little warmer ahead of the May 2-4 weekend?
Yeah, Farah, when we've got a holiday weekend approaching, you don't really want to be seeing frost advisories expanding, right? Well, we're actually going to have our temperatures coming back up a little bit tomorrow, but really more so than that Friday. But I will tell you, there is a little bit of up and down as we head into this holiday weekend. So earlier in the show, we did look at that widespread frost advisory, eastern Ontario all the way through back towards southwestern Ontario. But those temperatures, after they go up Friday, they come down a little bit Saturday, up Sunday, back down for the holiday Monday. But in terms of wet weather, that's looking mostly like Friday night And then into Saturday, there are going to be some plans that'll be, well, you could still go on out there, but it might be a little bit gray and a little bit damp through Saturday. We could actually use the rainfall, however, just looking at the monthly average for May. This would be by the end of May, on average, we have around 75 millimeters. We're a little past halfway through the month, and we're less than 30 so far. So hey, we'll bring a little bit more shower activity in here, and let's lose some of the frost advisories, right? So part of the reason is we're seeing the lighter winds tonight, but also the clear skies. So that ridge of high pressure is bringing us the clear skies. It's a gift during the day because we get all of that sunshine as long as we keep the smoke away, which we should be able to do for another day or so. It is going to make its way back in our skies. But as long as we do, then we see a lot of blue, and you just get a little bit of fair weather cloud that will tend to develop, especially in the afternoon hours for Thursday. But Friday, this next frontal boundary will be approaching. Now, you could see something into the evening hours in southwestern Ontario, certainly into cottage country, but otherwise it won't likely reach the GTA till the overnight hours Friday, but then it does linger into Saturday. A look at those temperatures, Sarnia, I do have you down to freezing. London as well, and through the Golden Horseshoe, a lot of those readings very, very similar. Up to 15, though, tomorrow, warmer than today. Very mild on Friday, a nice day there. And then we have a couple nice days far to end the holiday weekend as well in that Sunday, Monday.
All right, looking forward to that. Thanks, Colette. Finally tonight, a fascinating discovery by astronomers and NASA. They've located an Earth-sized exoplanet that might be totally covered by volcanoes. What you're looking at now is an artist's rendition of the planet. It's about 2.5 times Earth size and over 7 times its mass. But what makes it such a cool discovery is that it sits in the habitable zone, where scientists theorize liquid water could exist on the surface. If the planet is geologically active, like experts suspect, it could maintain an atmosphere and maybe even life. The truth is out there. That is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. We are off the air at 11 because of the playoffs. I am Farah Morali. Have a great night, everyone.